Stuck in your cubicle wall, always feeling like you think you did right. Everyone else makes more money than you. You feel all the time like you're being abused. What you need is a new adventure, stories to inspire all new venture. Get your mind right, join the new.
Welcome, everybody, to How to Thrive in IT live recording session. Thor's here with me trying to cause trouble. So, hello, Thor, everyone. All right, let's put you back in your bed because that's the way this goes. All right, so if you haven't been here before, and it has been a while, so just FYI, we're going to be talking today about kind of something. Yeah, people don't like talking about money, things like that. But I think we need to be talking more about this. And so I'm going to be spending some time with you and talking really honestly about stuff. So if you have questions or comments, feel free to put those into chat or comments, depending on which platform you're watching this on. I think we have people on Twitch, we have people on YouTube, we have people on LinkedIn, I think. Haven't confirmed if LinkedIn is actually live. But anyway, regardless, if you have questions, let me know. They'll show up for me over in the corner here, and I'll try to get to them in the course of the conversation. If I don't get to you right away, just know that's okay. But do me a favor, if you have a question or a comment, give me a little context. Say regarding this. What's your question? What's your comment? That sort of thing. That way, if I come back to it, I can actually fit it into the conversation well enough to fit into like a podcast or video episode down the road. So this will be edited and redone, sort of thing, made cleaner. Not all the awkwardness. And well, okay, I can't promise none of the awkwardness. I'll promise a 10% reduction in awkwardness for the actual live or the live. Oh my gosh, see that sort of thing. We'll edit that out. Slice. Yeah. No, it's all good. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to How to Thrive in IT, the podcast for IT professionals that frankly stands alone in its field as the only one named How to Thrive in IT, the podcast for IT professionals. My name is DJ. It's been a while since I've been recording one of these, so I thought I'd reintroduce myself. But in any case, let's get started. Today, we're going to be talking about how I got to about $1 million worth of revenue and then didn't. And I'm going to show you how I analyzed what I did right before, wasn't doing right again, and what I'm going to be doing in the future to help with that. So let's get started.
You may be tired, feeling hopeless, deflated by tasks that you can't get through. But we've got hope for you. We're on to season 2. Getting wisdom from the trenches, learning to lead by example. This is how to thrive in IT. Take it away, DJ.
Yes, sir. Will do. All right. Welcome. This episode is going to be a lot of fun, but we're going to be talking today about that sensitive topic of money, of course, and how things went for me. So rather than just like complex video stuff, I thought I'd just talk to you. So, yeah, here we go. So, deep breath in, deep breath out. Okay. Yeah. Revealing some stuff today that isn't always great to talk about publicly, but I think it'll help somebody out there, and so we're going to talk about it. So, how did I end up with $1 million? Well, I'm going to say this right up front, so there's no misunderstanding. It wasn't like I made $1 million all at once and then retired. Doesn't work like that. In fact, I'm willing to bet that the vast majority of people that are hearing this have, if they're above the age of 40, been close to or getting close to making $1 million in their lifetime. So that is something that we have to recognize, especially in today's economy, that those dollar amounts aren't as daunting as they used to be. As I'm recording this, I'm about to turn 50. And I'll tell you, 30 years ago, $1 million was a daunting figure. That was like impossible to get to. Nowadays, I know people that are doing that in under a year, which I'm jumping ahead. We'll get to that. But in any case, my career started off in IT very humbly, and I will actually include a link when this goes live to a YouTube episode that I did fairly recently that kind of describes more about that journey. I want to get into all the details of that, but let's cherry pick a few quick little things. Basically, I started doing some consulting work after reading a book called 48 Days to the Work You Love by my former mentor, Dan Miller. He passed away, unfortunately, 2 years ago. So, yeah, not ideal, but I miss him every day. Seems like, and even on days I don't think about him, I still kind of miss him somewhere. So it's been a yeah. But anyway, that book was transformative for me and really got me to the place where I thought differently about the nature of work and wanted to be more doing the work that was actually going to move me forward instead of just what I was told or what I was handed. And so that was a critical piece for me as far as figuring out that there could be that kind of thing going on in my life. And so that was a yeah, transformative kind of thing. So I went to work as a third party contractor with Citrix Consulting. Now, what this meant was that I wasn't a direct employee of Citrix. I wasn't even a direct employee of the company that Citrix contacted or contracted with for my services. I was a independent, had a 1099, self employed, but choose your term. Technically speaking, I had to form a corporation to be able to do any of this. So a lot of people say self employed. Sometimes they just don't fully understand that. Again, there's a episode all about that. I'll link into the description or wherever it goes, and then we'll do more about that. But bottom line is that I had to learn very quickly to formulate a company, but also meant that I got the question of, okay, what's your rate? Oh, rate for what? Hourly rate. Okay, well, I guess, yeah, and it kinda just went in a conversation, and I didn't know how to handle that back then, and so I kinda ended up just starting at, like, I think it was, like, 65 an hour, something like that is when I first started with doing this consulting work. Now, that was a pretty good deal for them because it turned out that Citrix was giving them some 200 some odd, per hour, and so I was a pretty big profit center for them. Let's put it that way. But eventually I did figure out that, you know what, that's probably not what I'm worth. In other words, yeah, I always hate saying that, what I'm worth. There's as far as the market value of my services, let's put it that way. What I'm worth personally is very, very different than any kind of monetary value. I know that I am a redeemed person that doesn't always deserve it, but it means that I'm worth more than I think I am. Let's just say it that way. But the reality here is that I didn't know what to set for a value for my services, but it was more than I was making before, so I was pretty happy. And as the time went on, I started to increase my value for them. I feel like I'm repeating myself, but that's we'll get there. As I increased my value, then I was able to increase my rate that I was charging for that value to the customer, to the company that I was actually serving. You know, again, value not being a personal value, being a results value. So look at that however you want. If it's an hourly rate, you know, how effective are you? How much more value can you add that would, you know, basically be a shortcut for others? How much time can you save is a thing that comes up a lot these days as far as determining what kind of a what your an hour of your time is worth. You know, it's like, okay, well, how much value did that add? You know, so if you're just starting out and just figuring things out, your value is so much per hour, right? And then if you are very seasoned, then you're worth more per hour because you can do more effectively. You're more efficient. And then you get to a certain point where it's kind of like a ceiling, and that's kind of what I reached. At that point, I'd increased my rates to oh gosh, I'm going off the cuff here. I think it was about 85 an hour, something like that. Now, as I mentioned in the other video, it's important to note that when it comes to these hourly rates, if you've never done independent consulting before, where you get generate a 1099, or if you've never run your own company where you have to do corporate taxes on top of what you'd have to do on your own, you need to know that when you're doing that, there's at least a 25% overhead. In my case, you know, because I was required to have my own corporation and do all that, my overhead was closer to 30%. percent. And so basically 30% of everything I was making, gone. All the taxes and fees and that sort of thing. And then on top of that, there's additional costs for just running the business as a business. So I pretty quickly figured out that as far as like revenue I was getting in wasn't necessarily what I was able to take home. In fact, at one point I realized that I was, essentially better off being self-employed because I was like getting more every day, that sort of thing. But once I figured that out, in order to send me back out on the road, I think we're talking like 2014 or so. I had actually stepped away for a while and actually worked for a company for about a year and change as their kind of lead architect for Citrix in their practice. So I was both a consulting and a sales engineering solution architect kind of a role. Had many different flavors for what it actually was, but basically I was the practice lead for that. So when it comes to that, that was a great job. I really did enjoy my time there. It's unfortunate that I just got to a point where I just couldn't. I didn't see it really. How do I say this publicly? I didn't think it was a good fit for me anymore, and so I did end up resigning my position from that, and kind of went back into the independent consulting world. So I did a few things just around for other customers, and then ended up being kind of recruited back into the Citrix consulting world. But when I did that, I said, okay, well, this time around, if we're going to do this, this has to be my rate. This has to be where we're at. And so it was more like 100, an hour. And that entered a season that was actually really kind of cool because I was able to do a couple of things that I figured out. One was that I could just basically do additional work, not just the 40 hours or whatever it was for that contract, but I could do stuff when I was in the hotel room, evenings. And so because I was traveling a lot back then, I figured why not just stack the time? It's not like I am. You know, let's be honest. If you're on the road and things like that in hotel rooms, week after week, it can get kind of well, you can get into some bad habits. And, for a while there, I did, going out and, drinking more than your expense uh, reports can even handle, that sort of thing. Actually, back then, I think it was one of those things where it's just a flat kind of a thing. And so, the tax code was a little different back then, so you could write some of that off. But ultimately, it wasn't worth it. And so I started doing a lot more of just stacking and found very quickly that I could essentially work between 50 and 60 hours a week, and it didn't require any more time away from home or anything like that. It was just like, what, why not? So that's exactly what I started doing. I started doing work for additional people, all stacked under my company name. And so that was the what happened. But I want to talk a little bit more about kind of how we got there. Um, so back in 2012, I was kind of exposed to a key for all this, kind of what shifted everything for me professionally, which I think is the thing I want everyone to take away from this today. You don't have to go into independent work to get this key. You don't have to go be your own boss to get this key. It has nothing to do with that. In fact, I will be blunt and say that I kind of wish I was wired differently because with this, I think there's a lot of people out there that work for a corporation that actually are doing more and getting more stability and having. I'm sitting here talking with my hands outside of the camera. What does it matter? It's a podcast, but they get more out of it and can actually make more revenue than I ever have every year because of this. And of course, because like any kind of creator, I've learned to create a open loop here. So let's instead talk about today's quote unquote sponsor. Actually, is not a sponsor. They're just people that I've loved a single product that I use a lot. Actually, I thought about even in kind of like figuring out how to share some of the coffee I've been using with this. But the AeroPress is a device that I have been using for a long time, and want to bring that up as kind of a quick little thing here. Like I said, they don't sponsor this, but it's one of those things where there's a link I can do with Amazon that if you get yourself an AeroPress and do what I've done for years, I'm talking about life on the road. This actually was a game changer for me as far as being able to have clean, reliable, good quality coffee on the road without having an entire, thing you're taking with you. Because most hotels or whatever it is have either a microwave in the room or even hot water dispensers in the hotel. All you need to do is have some coffee with you, put the grinds into the AeroPress, add the right amount of water to it, and you can press that down into a cup and have your coffee. And so if you have like a Yeti mug, like I got from Experts Exchange a few years ago for being on their podcast, perfect. So it's very road durable. So you're able to just put the AirPress right on here, press your coffee in, boom, you got high grade coffee that you'd pay like $8 for at a coffee shop these days, right right with you. So that's why that's one of the people I like to highlight. So enjoy that. Anyway, links are going to be in places that links should be. All right, let's get on with this. So the key with being able to transform my work life into being a more profitable life was also the key in really making it so that I could just be home more and be more present, not be going from crisis to crisis, and really be more effective with my time because I finally realized that, oh, yeah, it's not just about job description kind of stuff. It really is about identifying what the value is. What, like I was talking about earlier, what are the things that actually make it so that your time matches the value that the people that are paying you are hoping to have. That your time matches the value that the people are paying you want to have. And the key was really mentoring. Having someone that was able to speak into what I was doing and basically reveal what, I don't want to say the customer, but the people that were paying me, employer, whatever that looks like, manager, boss, insert your word here for whoever is in charge of making sure that you are doing the things you need to be doing. And as a result, promised to get that out of it. Mentors are kind of what stand as a translation matrix. I hate to say this, and this is actually one of the reasons why I'm doing so much with leadership development these days, and I think that's really the wave of the future is because especially to people in technology, we're really not good about telling people what they need to be doing to be successful. And we're not good at revealing what people need to do professionally. Sometimes we're really good at nailing down, okay, what kind of technical aspects should be there. But we need somebody to actually tell us that kind of missing link, like what is standing in the gap, what do we need to stand in the gap between the expectations and the agreement. Talked about that before, I think too. Hopefully, you've heard me talk about that, um, where we have a standing in the gap moment, and the reality with that is that you need mentors, and that is something where you need someone to not only just be not. Let me back up a second. Mentor is not somebody who tells you what to do. A mentor is someone who demonstrates what success looks like. So in my case, in 2012, I was actually put on some disciplinary action when I was at Citrix, and this was not a pretty time for me. This is actually one of those times I talk about very cautiously because it's very much a traumatic event that led to further trauma and literally like there was a time it was so traumatic for me that I remember actually vomiting at one point because I was so fearful of what it was going to mean. It was just that bad. Because I'd never experienced anything like this before, and so I was, wondering if my career was ruined just because of one incident. And the incident was that a a customer. I think I've talked about this before, but a a customer I was visiting, you know, I get a phone call at like 4 or 5 in the morning, something like that. Just yeah, I stopped giving out my phone at this point after this. It's like, no, you don't get the call anymore. But this person was like livid, like screaming level livid, and finally got out of them that they had intrusion alarms going off on their servers because one of my team had been in later at night when they didn't hadn't really declared that they would be in working on the servers or whatever. Why we had VPN access, I'm trying to remember exactly, but whatever. They were being proactive. They were doing exactly what I was talking about doing when you're just like, okay, you're at the hotel room. Are you just going to be making trouble for yourself, going out and doing things you shouldn't be doing, or are you just going to let's do some work. I'm here. Why not? So that's what they were doing. They were just saying, you know what, we're going to need to do some of this work on a server. Let's go ahead and just do it. Well, they didn't know that there was intrusion detection on there, and they were doing it on a domain controller. And so, those of you that know that that's really not a good thing. So, I basically, after assuring them that I would take care of the situation and make sure it was clear, um, I I don't know. I to this day I don't know what I said that was bad about this, but I let this other junior consultant know that no, that wasn't the right way to do that. You need to like inform them that you're going to be doing changes or some sort of thing, get approval, things like that that we take for granted, I guess. So, but yeah, for some reason, it had come off as me coming down on them, even though I wasn't. I was just correcting a behavior basically. It wasn't disciplinary. It wasn't anything like that. But then before I know it, I've got a warning from the folks at Citrix that I was on like a probation kind of a thing. Like my status as a lead was in jeopardy because of this. And I'm sitting there going, what in the world is going on? I just was very confused by it. And so the company I was contracting with was also a little confused by it. Nobody could understand what was going on. There was an expectation that was there somewhere that we just didn't know about. We weren't aware. There was an assumption that was made at some point. It was a very interesting time in the world of Citrix consulting back then, where not everything was communicated as well as it could have been, unfortunately, and it was just like a weird transitional time. It got better, just so you know. But what happened was I said, okay, what I need is someone to work under for a while and see how this is done. And so we actually had my friend Jenna on Thrivecast a couple of years ago, and she was the person that actually I was able to get them to send out to take over a project that I was going to be taking and have me working under her to see how how things go and to understand how this should work. And I actually ended up working under her for a lot more projects than just this one, just trying to figure out, okay, what is it that is wrong here, and what's wrong with my guidance or whatever. And so she became a mentor for me. You know, her being a younger person than me, way less experience in the Citrix world, but more experience with the Citrix business side of things. She was able to show me how things go and actually explain to me some of the things that I was needing to know. And it turns out that there were all these expectations that I had no idea about. And so I had to lean in and really get into better practices with that. And so yeah, yeah, there was a lot of things that I just didn't know, and so I was able to correct those. But it's because of that mentoring. Now you're sitting here wondering, DJ, what does this have to do with the title of this whole thing? And it's this: is that once I figured that out, my value shot way up. I found that I was being asked to take on projects. Before it was just I was assigned to projects. Now I had people asking for my work. They were asking for me specifically. This is something that was somewhat familiar to me, and I'm way back. We're going way back in time for this one. We're going back a little over 20 years for this one. I was a wedding and mobile events DJ, and so when you're really good at that, then you sometimes will get people asking for your services, asking for your to join them. And so that was a familiar thing because when I got to that point in my DJing, that's one of the first businesses I took on very seriously was being a mobile disc jockey. I realized when people were asking for me by name, well, why not just be my own company doing that? And that's exactly what I did. So that's way back in the day before I really, and it was on a trajectory. It was on a great trajectory actually. But back in 2009, I had a back problem that kept me from that. So after a good 6 years of developing that business on the side, I had to give it up, unfortunately. But actually, fortunately, in some regards, because now I'm able to do other things. But that was familiar to me to recognize that people want, need, be better at it, keep improving at it, and then get to a point where people are asking for you by name. So if people are asking me for me by name, do you think that a signal went off in my head to say it's time to increase the amount that I'm being paid for my services? The answer is yes. And so what I did was then increase how much I was earning per hour. And, I don't have the exact figures right in front of me, but there were years where the revenue is coming in. Now, gotta keep in mind, this is before taxes, which I had mentioned earlier are substantial when you're self-employed and have your own, corporation. But it was at one point, it was well over 260,000 per year. Well, if you keep doing that, if you do the math, that's under 5 years to make $1,000,000, and so it took me more like 9 years to truly get to that point, but this is the kind of things that are possible. Now in today's world, if you are an employee or you are, part of an organization that has opportunities for further growth, what you can do is make sure you're engaging with mentors because they're the ones that are gonna translate to you, "Okay, they say they want this, but they want this in that moment." It's that moment of time that's what they want. If you keep doing that one thing and only doing that one thing, they're going to be disappointed in you and eventually they'll probably let you go. But if you get with a mentor and say, okay, what other things do I need to be looking at here? What other things could I do differently? And just ask the question. And if you're somebody mentoring someone else, which I also encourage you do, the key here is to say, okay, well, what worked for me? I said this recently in another video. There's a saying that I have taken on, and that's why I continue doing this when maybe under a dozen people hear it or watch it, because somebody needs to hear this, and that is that you're best positioned to help the person you once were, and that's what mentoring is all about. You don't have to be giving them a framework for success, or you don't have to know how to coach them. All you have to do is say, "Well, this is what worked for me. These are the observations that I've had," and answer their questions. That's it. That's really mentoring in a nutshell is just being there for someone and being willing to take them under your wing in that way, I guess you could say, and kind of help them to understand what they need to do. Now, you're not demanding results, you're not managing them, you're not like in charge of anything about them actually. You are just there to help. And so when it comes to wanting to grow and be making more money, doing less work when you're working, having more flexibility in your schedule, being home more. I don't really see a pathway to any other way to do this. And the reason I say this is because of kind of getting into part two here. I kind of jumped the gun a little bit, I guess, or I'm going longer than I was hoping to with part one of this. But part two of this is what went wrong for me. So I'd done this whole thing. I generated $1 million over time, and bought this nice BMW that I always wanted. Had no debt, had plenty in savings. Eventually, got a house. All this kind of stuff was going great, but just and this is I wanna be very careful here that I'm not blaming COVID for this because it wasn't. Um, I entered into a period that I now call the drift. It was about the time that I actually had published or not published, I was getting ready to publish the first 2 books, and what I later confessed to my wife is that it felt like publishing those books was the worst thing I ever did because now I was like, "Now what?" kinda things. But when I examine it, it had really started before then. And the problem, and I've said this before, the problem was I found that I was the smartest, always the smartest person in the room. There's a saying, it's like if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. I agree with that to a point. I think what it is like if you're always the smartest person in the room, then you need to examine the rooms you're in. I'm jumping ahead. We're going to talk about that more here in a second, but I did in looking at this, I was I don't want to say overconfident. I'll say under challenged, and really found that I was doing things that were helpful, but they were more pet projects at that point. They were just like, well, I'm just going to do this thing and see who it helps and put it out there. But pretty soon it became something else for me. It became, oh, well, no, this is who I am now. And now I'm an author, quote unquote. Now I do speaking. Now I do these things, right? Well, I maybe had some instruction on that, but I didn't really have a mentor. And this is the part that's hard for me to talk about because you always want to, well, I guess people gravitate towards the people that just have the flawless strategy that works for them all the time. It works all the time and never fails. Well, I can't promise you that because that's not what happened with me. I in 2019, I actually started declining in what I was making every year, and I think it was partially burnout. I was just kind of done. There were so many different like dramas and traumas I had been through, and just so much work, and I was just done with the hustle, and felt like it was just never going to be any different. And I just it wasn't fulfilling as it once was, and so I kind of got to that point of just you get on a plane Sunday, you talk to somebody new. It's always it's a level of excitement. So you're with somebody you in a part of the country you've never been to or whatever. Those kind of things were real. But eventually, it just became okay. Out Sunday, back Thursday. Out Sunday, back Thursday. Out Sunday, back Thursday. Like almost every single week. It got exhausting. And so even when in 2019, when I started doing a lot more work remotely for this, because they started to realize, oh wait, travel's expensive. Why are we doing this? We're a technology that does remote access. Why are we sending people in person? No. Uh, To be honest, I was more effective in person. I was able to get people's attention more effectively. Consulting generally works better in person, in my opinion, but that's just not the world we're in anymore. So let's move on. But in any case, I was just kind of like not able to sustain the level I was at. So my trajectory to 2 million was cut short by my own unwillingness to hustle, which is, by the way, absolutely fine, maybe even encouraged. But the reality was that I still needed, income. It's just like your cost of living tends to go up a bit. I wasn't exorbitant at all. I was like, very much, saving quite a bit, and we put a lot into the home and things like that. So we had some equity, but I wasn't really, but I was also just kind of drifting in that regard. So it's like, oh, well, I don't need to work as hard anymore. I don't need to. Well, we're gonna go through about 2020. I'll say 2021 especially. 2020 was a year where I was very distracted. I was like wanting to just start a new career, wanted to do all these kind of different things. 2021, I started off the year with these grand notions of what I was going to do with that, of making this big, membership program, which eventually I'll talk about what I want to do about all that. So I had all these ambitions, and it turned out that I really didn't know enough to really do the stuff successfully. I had the methodologies and things like that, and had people selling me courses that said, no audience, no problem, just do it. And hey, I'd had some successes with that as far as the books and everything like that. I was able to get myself out. So I was like, okay, great. And so I started doing things with programs and blah de blah de blah. And before I knew it, I realized, you know, I'm spending like 40,000 a year on development stuff and learning new stuff and doing all these things. And I'm earning with it nothing. And so it was very discouraging. And the thing is, I fell into a hole. I got very depressed in 2021. It was still COVID and all that kind of stuff. And I was just like not very motivated to do anything anymore. And so I just started drifting into not doing anything that wasn't required of me. I did enough to pay the bills and the mortgage. Well, by the time 2023 rolled around, I was in a really bad spot. When I was barely doing any work to begin with, I was maybe working, I don't know, maybe 20 hours a week at that point. And then around May is when Citrix Consulting shut down. They just stopped doing um, contract services for, most clients. They still do apparently do some consulting work, but I haven't gotten a call. So it's just not as much a thing anymore. In fact, well, I'll just tell you, I'm launching my own practice with that again. I'm not getting back into that. Don't want to jump ahead too much, but basically, yeah, there's some of that going on. But basically, that was kind of I lost my mojo, so to speak. I really kind of made it to the point where I wasn't really effective anymore. And you know what? I'll be completely blunt. My work was suffering, and I wasn't really doing the level of consulting work that was making me that person that was requested. Now, I was still being requested. That was something where I had some folks that I worked with that were actually Citrix employees, that were responsible for running projects that would very often ask for me specifically because we worked well together. They knew I would deliver. There was no messing about. I just basically made their life easier. So they would request me for these projects, and great. Yeah, it's good stuff. Um, what happened though was that it's kind of a rug pull for me, and it was the wrong time, unfortunately. And so I just went into a spot where, and this has been for several years now, that I've just not generated revenue because I lost kind of my drive for it. And so this is where I want to get into talking about um, a change with that. But let me take a quick break. Tell you about the resource of the week, and so yeah, I'll tell you more about the kind of the book that brought me back in, and kind of the program that I'm working with now, and kind of what I'm doing going forward. Not with the goal of generating $1 million, but something that I'm confident will do just that. So I'll get to that after the research.
Variety brings the heat, something new every week. Get ready to click and see something awesome for you and me. Resource of the week. Oh yeah, resource of the week. What will it be this week? Get ready to take a peek. Resource of the week.
But yeah, I was thinking about that a little small part.
What will it be this week? Get ready to take a peek.
Anyway, we'll fix that in post. Resource of the week this week is from my friends at Incogni. Now, again, this is not a sponsored spot. They're not paying me to do this. It's one of those things where I'm a customer, and I'm. I didn't mention this in the rest of the video, but actually managed to have to sell my home and buy another one, kind of a downgrade. That's really how bad it got back in those in last year. I'm just being blunt. Um, and so it was a good move. It was the right time, and has gotten us by very well. Got out of a lot of debt and have been able to survive for a long time off of that sale. But the problem is, it was a sale and then a new mortgage. And in today's world, just that one event. Oh, I should have brought this up on the screen. I apologize. I could show you like the insanity of the number of data brokers that suddenly had access to my information and the removal requests that I tried manually. One never worked. You'd always find some loophole or something like that. And it was a very time consuming process. I said earlier that time is value, right? You want to be more effective with your time. So I figured out, okay, well, what is it costing me for trying to chase this down? And then how much time would it take to try and track down every single data broker that has access to my information? And the amount of hours that I came up with was insane. And so I tried out Incogni. They are a service that goes out and removes your name from these databases, from these data brokers that are selling your information, which is, as someone who takes in people's information and to be able to communicate with them on a regular basis and kind of keep them informed about what I'm doing and that sort of thing. As someone who does that, I I can't even describe how disgusting it is to think of profiting off of that. You profit off of things that add value. So if you profit off of just other people's information that they didn't even really consent to be doing that with, it's just disgusting. So that first of all. But every time you sign up for a free service, every time you're doing all these things, yeah, there's a risk of that. And sometimes, though these days they're legally required to, whether they do or not, disclose that. Well, it turns out that certain things that you do in your life, they're not required to tell you that they do it. They just do it and then tell you after the fact. I got informed that they were selling my information about, oh, I don't know, 6 months after they were. So, yeah, that was great. So Incogni goes in on your behalf and submits legally formatted removal requests and then tracks to see if it's done. And so there have been literally thousands of data brokers that Incogni has removed my information from. And so you're asking the question, well, does it matter? The number of emails, calls, and literal mail that I was getting at one point has been reduced to almost zero. It is absolutely working, So there's a few that just don't comply, and we're working on some of those. I can now do custom removal requests for those that are not, and so I can go out and track those specifically. So anyway, Incogni is the service I use. I believe this is still going on, but if you go to 11talents.co/inc, that is a affiliate link, and so I think they give me something like a free month, or I don't know, compensated in some way. So it is helping me out, but it doesn't really increase your cost to try it out or to use the service. And I think right now they're still operating this. I hope this is still accurate. I apologize if it's not, but at the time I put this up, there was a 58% savings that they were offering, and so that was kind of cool. So Incogni is something I use to get those insert not pleasant word there about those people that sell your information and that are despicable and let me say, if you ever are in a situation where you sign up for things that I do. Actually, we'll have one here in a few minutes. It'll ask for your information because I need to send you things. Just know that, yeah, there's just no way they'll have to forcibly take it from me. And then good luck, good luck. I will burn it all to the ground before I sell anyone's information to anyone else. No freaking way. Anyway, let's talk about the next step of this and kind of some recommendations that I'll make for you with your mentoring journey. One is recognize that if you don't have someone in your life to get you unstuck, then the drift will continue. That notion that, well, yeah, and actually, I should have organized this better. When this goes live, I will include a link in the description of a assessment that you can go take that will actually tell you if you are drifting in your career or in your life, and kind of give you some kind of initial instruction on how to get around that. And so last year, around this time last year, actually, November of 2024, I decided to kind of shut a lot of things down and focus in on what I thought was the next wave or the next big thing with IT and with my life. What do I want to do? And what kind of things interest me? What would I get excited about? And for me, those times that I've led teams or had I don't think I've really ever had like employees that I was like 100% responsible for. I take it back. Yeah, I have. But um, those kind of times were really stressful times. But the times that I was able to just be a person that would be able to inspire and equip people and help them be better, those I loved. And that is essentially what leadership is, right? That is where you are uh, building a level of influence that encourages others to action. That's different than management, which requires action. Leadership inspires action. Okay, big distinction there. So that was really attractive to me, and I looked at like, okay, who in my life has been encouraging that way, and so I started looking at people like Tony Robbins, some of the more modern thinkers in this, like Simon Sinek and folks like that. But what I landed on was actually way back when I first was challenged with this, way back in the early 2000s, and my first kind of journey into leading an IT or deployment team. And the book that I read back then, there's two books. One was The 360-Degree Leader, and the other one was 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. And the author of those books was John C. Maxwell, who I'd heard talk when I was way back in high school, I think. And so it was great to get connected with that. So I kind of reintroduced myself, if you will, to those, and found that, oh, that is something where there's a whole program that I can join, that I can actually be part of that, but also be endorsed by John to go out and use his material as a business, as something that I do for people and be able to equip them. In other words, I didn't have to figure out on my own how to do all this. I could just emulate that level of success. Well, along with that program, when I got certified and all that kind of stuff, there was an additional thing with that, which was a mentorship program. And I'm talking about stuff that is an investment. But the difference with this was just how often I was able to meet with people, and the person that made probably the most impact in that organization is the guy who kind of heads up all of the Maxwell leadership team um, activities and all that kind of stuff. And his name is Chris Robinson. Well, this year in 2025, he actually wrote a book called From Drift to Drive. This is um, if you have been in IT work for more than 10 years, I want you to go out and get this book. I'm not going to require it of you, but I'm going to tell you right now that you need this in your life. Okay. There's just something about working in technology where you just tend to get to a point of status quo. You're used to being the person that is, the smartest person in the room, that sort of thing. It's just inevitable. if you have any kind of I apologize. I've got these cats that are going crazy downstairs and I can't yell at them. Whatever. I'll let them tear each other to pieces and I'll work it out later. Um, if you are in a position in IT that ever does anything that is improving anything, I'm laughing because that should be anything you do in information technology should be doing something to make something better around you. That's the whole point. But it tends to cause this drift where everything just becomes kind of like, okay, well, you know, it the notion that I use is there's a problem that emerged with the people that have actually walked on the moon. And the problem with a lot of those folks, they actually almost everybody that stepped foot on the moon had depression and just very tough time motivating themselves because they had stepped on the freaking moon. Who else can say they did that? And so it caused in them a very much a drift, and so there was no drive left in them because what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do that's better than like being on the freaking moon? I'm just saying. So this book I have highlighted like crazy because there's a whole 7-step process in here um, to kind of getting away from the drift and into the drive section. And step 4 is guidance. And what I want to do is read a section of this for you because you can see it was so good that I have 2 different color highlighters. If you're seeing this on video, but I wanted to read this. He's talking about kind of being in the wrong room and realizing it, and so um, here's Chris Robinson. No matter what you're aiming for, no matter the environment, whether you're volunteering for someone or looking for people to provide you guidance within an organization, when you offer to serve, when you come alongside and help from an unselfish heart, you'll be amazed at what you learn. Proximity over time opens doors. So this is something where I can see that there is, a way to get mentors where you normally wouldn't have mentors, and that is to be around someone and just offer to help or offer to do more or see what they need, that sort of thing. So that's a method that I'm using these days to just be in proximity to people that are figuring things out that I want to figure out. I want to figure out how to be a successful coach. I want to figure out how to actually be a successful speaker and leader in that way. I want to figure this out. And you know what? I can't just do this alone. I can't just read about it. I need to be in the room with people and have relationships with people that have figured it out. And so that's what I've been working on is doing a lot more of that. And so there's some other ways you can do this too. And this is where I'm going to be talking about this. I was hoping to be ready for this today, and I really wish I was. But I'll be talking about a conference opportunity. It'll be in a virtual event, and it's actually it's a John Maxwell organization thing that I now have access to present to you. It is licensed content. It'll be like a virtual conference um, where a lot of these speakers have done it before and will be able to do this. And so what I'm doing is I'm putting together a very unique virtual event because it'll be basically 2 in 1. The first run will be during the time where a lot of people have like production freezes and things like that. And so I'm going to be taking the kind of the noon hour and surrounding hours, maybe 2 to 3 hours a day for 3 days, and making that a time where you can just come watch the content and then go on with your workday. Kind of just be able to kind of invest in yourself midday, and then later in about a month later, we'll do an all day event. They'll have all the content again. So in case you miss any of the ones, you can actually come back again and see them. Now this is something where I can't do recordings of it, but I can present it live, and so that's what I'm doing. So the from Chris Robinson again, Drift to Drive. Um, you wouldn't walk into a doctor's office and expect him to, out of the goodness of his heart, give you a diagnosis. You wouldn't expect an attorney to drop legal papers for you just in a sense of altruism. You'd expect to pay professionals in their fields to handle such important matters. In the same vein, when you approach the professionals you need to help you in your next steps, expect to pay professional services for those, or professional prices for those services. If it's a book, hire a book coach. If it's to become a leader in an organization, hire the leadership trainer. That's me. Uh, if it's to successfully switch industries or start a completely new business, hire the business coach. And here's the key I wanted to highlight. Get to the conference. Get in the room with people that are pulling oars in the direction you want to go. I want to leave it at that. It is really a fantastic book. But he talks about when he invested initially in the John Maxwell trainings and all that kind of stuff, and got to the point of being the person that was just bottom rung, and now he's the president of Maxwell Leadership. It's kind of a big deal, right? But it all started from that point, and along the way, he was mentored. And so that's really what the key is here. That's what I recognized is like it's not, well, to say it, the problem isn't me, but it is me. The reason that I'm not generating revenue or being excited about what I was doing is it's my fault, but it's not my fault. It really is that I just needed to find people to live out the example of what they're doing at a higher level than what I'm doing. And so if I'm the smartest one in the room trying to figure it out, and I'm still the smartest person in the room, then there's a problem with the room. And so getting into the room with the people that have actually figured it out. And so I've been to two of these so far. There's these John Maxwell conferences that I go to, and wow, being able to see the people that are figuring it out, the people that are even maybe behind where I'm at, but also the people that have really got it dialed in and figured out their kind of area to do this with. And so in the next few months, year, as I start putting together this conference and all these activities, a lot more that's going to be going on. But I'm doing all this under the guidance of mentors and coaches. And so that's really what I wanted to get to you today is to recognize that that really is the key to get into the room with the people that are going to be able to challenge you to do more than just drift around and be in your career. And so that's my encouragement to you. Get a mentor, whatever that looks like, whether it is a new venture or let's say you've been at the company for 5 years and you're just kind of stuck. Get a mentor that is where you want to be. If you are uh, in an admin position and you really want to see, okay, you know what? I've heard that these people that are architects make really good money and they're not getting the calls at, you know, 10 o'clock at night. I've heard that. That can't be right, right? Oh, they make more money? Well, this does, okay. Well, what's it like for them? They get all this. Oh, they get to go to conferences and speak and do all this kind of stuff. Wow, that's crazy. Are you just going to sit there and just watch from afar and hope for the best? Talk to one of them. See what you can do to be mentored by them. See what kind of things you can learn from them. Offer to help. Say, you know what? I'd really love to learn more about what you do. So you do a lot of documentation. Can I help you with your next documentation project and kind of learn the ropes? It's it's not hard to do, and it's not hard for us to do in IT. In fact, a lot of times it's way easier than you think. You don't have to wait for like a officially sanctioned like mentorship program from your company. Just go do it. Just go out there and find someone to be mentored by, and that is the key to much greater success. And I'm going to leave you with this little story, and it is from someone who kind of experienced this firsthand. He's actually partially the inspiration for the new book that I have uh, coming out eventually. I'm trying to finish up the initial manuscript this month. Tentative title is Outage. It talks about a person in an IT department in a hospital system that kind of goes through some pretty rough stuff, the typical stuff that a lot of people in IT for healthcare go through, where all of a sudden all the systems are down, and are people going to die today? That sort of stuff. That's that level of strain, and it happens over and over and over and over and over again. Well, sometimes they're voluntold to get into things that they don't know anything about to get past that, and so it's a story of that person engaging in some mentorship, getting coached, getting better, and then coaching others in the process, or mentoring others in the process, leading others in the process, actually. So that's what the book's about. But there was I'm spoiling part of the ending here, I guess, but that's okay. The person that inspired a lot of this aspects of the character really was drawn from real life here. Um, so what ends up happening is that they engage with someone that's in a position that they're very interested in, and eventually they start working kind of alongside that person at their company, and then they're kind of recruited away into a new role. And so in this case, there was somebody that was actually just a systems engineer. They were doing some leadership, started doing some speaking at some conferences with some stuff and that sort of thing, and it got the attention of a national vendor, and that vendor said, "Hey, do you want to come be our solutions architect?" So he kind of skipped a rung. It's kind of cool, but it's because of that challenging themselves and being mentored that they were able to, like, in this particular case, your results may vary, but they were able to 6x their income, like, almost overnight, which is crazy. That didn't happen for me. It is rare, but it is possible. It is possible to have those kind of jumps where you just are that far, kind of, I guess, behind in what your compensation is for what your value is, and you suddenly catch up. That it does happen. Like I said, your results may vary. See program details for, whatever. I don't, like, I'm bad at disclosure. Basically, the notion here is that you don't have to be stuck in the ditch. You don't have to be just drifting from lane to lane, asleep at the wheel. You can get to where you want to be, but it takes engaging with the people that are already there, getting in the room with them, whether that's doing it for free or doing it for a fee. My encouragement to you is to do it. Don't just sit around waiting. All right. And so, oh, yeah, I did this wrong. Let me compensate for this. No, 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 no. All right. So, um, every season on the podcast, I have a sponsor, and I just realized that I set this up wrong on the screen here. So let me give you a minute. I'm actually going to do this. All right. So the seasonal sponsor this season is me. And so what I want to do is tell you more about how you can be mentored by me and coached by me. Either This is kind of one of those things where it kind of depends on your situation. A lot of folks out there will just dismiss this and saying, "Oh no, he's going to ask me for money, and I just can't afford it," or whatever. And the reality is that I don't want that to be something that gets in your way. I think there's a way to work with just about everybody out there at some level. And whether that is something where I just am checking in with you every now and then and giving you resources to do, whether that is one-on-one coaching, whether that's working with you in a group of people, or even better, a lot of times you'd be surprised how often that if you want to get into, like, leadership, for example, that's one of those things that I'm talking about, where a lot of times you'll have the things that your manager asks you to do because they're there to manage to a task, right? But there's expectations from the larger organization that you will be growing over time. And what they really like to do is have people that have invested a lot of time in being there to start leading other people that are on the teams. And what's happening these days is a lot of times people are kind of voluntold to step into leadership. They're saying, well, if you want a future position with this company, you need to be a team leader. And this is, if it Hadn't it happened to so many people that I know within the last 3 years, I wouldn't be mentioning this, but it's totally where things have gone. So people are just being shoved into a team leadership role, but they've never really been taught how to lead. Yeah, this is what happened to me. So I just wasn't given the information. I wasn't taught this. I didn't have someone that was telling me, oh, these are the kind of things you need to do to lead people. I knew how to do the technology. I knew how to do uh, Citrix really well, right? Well, yeah. It just it turns out it need more of that. There's more, uh, you call them soft skills if you want. That's not really what this is. This is more of just like personal skills that have a business context, and they're useful outside of out of business. But the reality is that you need to be taught these things. You need somebody to work with. And so there's a link in the description or whatever you can look at to be able to schedule a time with me. And what we'll do in this call is I'm going to gift you some of my time to be able to say, okay, well, what kind of goals do you have? What kind of things are you working towards? And from there, I can kind of diagnose a bit and say, okay, what you probably need is something like this. And from there, then we can talk about how we can make that happen in your scenario. But like I said, in a shocking number of instances these days, people are having access to leadership development funds or things like that in IT that they just don't know they have. In fact, in one case, this is actually kind of cool. Let me tell you about this real quick. There was a case where there was actually some like a state or maybe a city or state, like a program that your leadership development was actually paid for by them. It was actually a scholarship kind of program. And so the company could just apply for this. And so the company, it didn't cost the company anything to develop you as a leader. That's pretty awesome. So there's programs like that too. So what I'm saying to you is that where there's a will, there's a way. And if I can be a mentor to you, I would love to be. Now, there's some opportunities that are coming up that are going to be for approachable at multiple levels. I'm talking like the 40 some odd dollars a month and up kind of range where you don't have to rely on your company to be part of these kind of things. In the next year, I'll be unveiling these and lots of things like, well, for example, like mastermind book studies, that sort of thing, where we can actually dive into the topics together and work as a group to better your knowledge and to have those times of investing in yourself, which is another topic for another day. But yeah, honestly, I typically recommend that you invest at least 1% of your earnings back into yourself every year. And so this is a way to do that if you need to do it personally. But like I said, a lot of times your company will actually pay for it for you. So use the link, get a call with me. Let's figure out a plan that works for you. And if it's not for you, great. That's okay. You know, like I said, I'm donating this time to you. And so this is my gift to you. So that's why I am my own sponsor for this particular thing that we're doing here. So yeah. All right. So thanks for being here with me today. We'll see you next time on How to Thrive in IT. Insert catchphrase here. All right. Whew. All right. So into the recording. So if you have any questions about today, feel free to put those in the chat. Um, Unfortunately, I'm not seeing any live here, so I'm hoping people are not trying to and not getting it. But in any case, I do hope that you found value to this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick around for a while. And oh man, I thought I had this. There was a lot of times on these episodes, what I'll do is have like a voting kind of a thing for how to for a genre of music that you would like. And so I didn't have the time to prepare that one this time around, and so I am flat-footed on this particular one. So what I'll do is I'll probably just generate a song on my own. But if you have a favorite type of music that you would like to hear the song for this episode in, um, yeah, I'll put some more thought behind that. But it's a lot of times a lot of fun to just show you how to do this, and so or how I go about this. And so let me do this. Let me find the tab I thought I had open here. I apologize. I'm all about the disorganization today. I use Suno to actually do this. So, and we go to. Oh, I did have it open. There we go. Beautiful. Um, so what we can do here is actually we can start a. If I can click on the right thing, put in your lyrics or have them generate it for you, what kind of style you want. And so, if I am thinking about this, I'll just say, um, let's give it a prompt here. Let's say we want to a uplifting song about being mentored in your career and making $1 million after being mentored. Let's write some lyrics. The fun thing about this is I actually have another song that I've actually created um, for Chris, and when I showed him this, he actually started writing his own music for Drift to Drive with Suno. So it's a lot of fun to have that. All right, so let's look at these words here. So, okay. Oh, I think I like this one already. Okay, yeah, let's do this. Do this one, and so let's do a synthwave um, uplifting pop rock. Actually, yeah, I guess 1980s rock style. Yeah, all right. So let's create this. And if somebody has a different genre of music, they can put it in the chat right now, and I can try it that way. But we'll see. We'll see how this goes. Oh yeah, so this is the first time I'm doing anything with version 5. I forgot about that. Um, do I have a link here? Yeah, Suno. Here we go. If you want to try this out, feel free to jump in the links there. But a lot of fun. All right, this is almost done. I guess version 5 is taking a lot more time to think about it, which is fine with me, especially if it's higher quality. But I'm morbidly curious what this is going to turn out like.
taught me to fight when the world felt blue. You said dreams are seeds, now plant them wide. I watched the forest grow from the tears I cried. Million thanks for the million dreams you lit the spark that fuel my schemes. Now I'm flying high on golden streams. Million thanks, yeah, a million beams. You said, keep your eyes on the prize, don't blink. Taught me to climb when I thought I'd sink. You held the ladder while I reached for stars. Now I'm counting cash and battle scars. Every dollar's a story, every climb a glory. Your voice echoes through my fight. Million thanks for the million dreams you lit the spark that fuel my schemes. Now I'm flying high on golden streams. Million thanks, yeah, a million beams. You gave me a map when the path was lost. Told me to leave, never mind the cost. Oh, now I'm standing tall where giants fell, with stories to tell, with stories to tell.
Oh, that was actually pretty good. I think if I do this, I might just look at the structure a little bit differently. Um, One of these days, by the way, I needed to have my friend Barry from EG Innovations on. He's actually doing some things with Suno that I think are just incredible. It's so fun and creative what he's doing with some of the AI tools like this. But I had to give him a hard time because I was already doing a lot of this stuff in it. But let's see here. Let's go back and oh, they look the same. Hopefully they're not. Let's listen to this other one and see what this one sounds like. So we'll just call this one V2. All right. Let's here we go. Ooh. Guitar delay. Man, we're a long way here.
You showed me the ropes when I had no clue. Taught me to told me to leave, never mind the cost. Now I'm standing tall where giants fell, with stories to tell, with stories to tell.
Wow, that's cool. I can't really decide which one I like the best. I I might just tweak these a little bit, but wow, they're really getting this nailed down. Um, in previous versions, the guitar would be kind of like it just wouldn't decay properly. Didn't have the right kind of live feel, especially for like kind of these 1980s Dan Huff kind of sounds. I'm being geeky. It's these things, these guitars here. I can't help it, but that's very cool. Let me know what your thoughts are, which ones you like the best. But yeah, I'm leaning towards the second one. The first one was good, is more emotional, but the second one I think had more of like a uplifting kind of a thing I was going for. So a little repetitive on the guitar, but I think that's kind of the point with kind of the synth wave kind of feel. But yeah, a lot of fun. In any case, I'm gonna get out of here. Thanks for being with me today. We'll have the full episode for this. Obviously, you know, me chatting for a long time. I'll cut this into pieces and make this into uh, a podcast episode. I'd love your feedback on that too. Basically, what I'm kind of my notion with these kind of things is to have either a video or a podcast or both that is about a what it would take a guy like me to do like a 5K or you know that much time on the treadmill. So between 45 minutes to an hour and 15 minutes, depending on you know what a guy like me can actually do, or a gal like you that is a better one than me. Whatever that looks like, that's the kind of the time frame I'm going here for a lot of this content that is more podcast like. And so, if you like that, let me know. For shorter form stuff, obviously we've got the YouTube channel, so feel free to engage with that and to subscribe, all that kind of blah 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 stuff. But in any case, I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to go on with my day. I hope you have a great day. Be blessed by the best. Go be a blessing to all the rest, is what I always say. So, yeah. All right, y'all. Have a great week, great weekend, and we'll see you again next time. Oh, before I go, if there's anything you want me to cover in one of these, uh, is that the right survey? Okay. Nope, it's not. Okay. You'll have to forgive me. I'm actually in the midst of everything else I've going on in my life. I'm actually trying to change my overall online platform or CRM, if you like. And so I've got these kind of surveys that I have out there to to get more information about the kind of things that are valuable to you. Um, but I forgot to grab that link, and so we'll have to do that next time. But in any case, if you have any feedback for me, just message me. It's fine. Find me on any platform. You know, yeah, obviously you're viewing this on a platform that you knew me from or can know me from. So feel free to drop me a message here. It's all good. If you have a topic you'd like to see me cover or questions you have about how to get better in your IT career and get from that point of just drifting to the point of finding where you're actually going to drive forward, let me know. And then we will go from there. All right, y'all. Have a great rest of the day, and we'll talk to you next time.